Welcome to Transport Vlog. My name is Paul, and in this video I'm going to give you a general update on the new Sydney Metro City and South West Underground stations.
So that's these stations on the map. I'll start with Waterloo, which is the only underground station on the south side of Sydney's CBD, and then work my way north.
It's been 5 months since Waterloo Station opened its doors to the public, and if you haven't seen that video yet, it's now appearing on the top right. And at that time it was about 95% complete, but a few significant things have changed since then.
The most obvious is the large white Waterloo Station name that is now visible on the Raglan Street entrance exit. And this has also been added to the Cope Street entrance exit as well. These are in addition to the standard teal Metro station name signs that are below the canopy. They are visible from quite far away, so will make it easier to find this station from the surrounding area. Another significant change is the completion of the canopies. Back in October they were just metal frames. But now they are all finished and painted in the same bronze colour that has been used for the upper part of this station building. Cope Street remains closed to allow work around the station to take place, and recently completed is the new wider pavement with seats and bicycle hoops. And this wider pavement continues into Raglan Street to create a small plaza area in front of the station entrance exit. And the Sydney Metro Lollipop sign has now been added to this plaza area. This structure here with the black supports and glass screens is for a skylight that will bring natural light into the concourse below, and you can see the bottom of this skylight here. On the community open day it was covered over, which is why it looked dark compared to the artificial light panels that surround it, but hopefully that won't be the case when the station opens. This skylight will also bring natural light into parts of the secure bicycle parking area that is just below the entrance level. Now continuing along Cope Street, and the canopies are now in place on this part of the services building, and the windows below the canopy are for a future cafe or restaurant, and you can see the grills for ventilation systems in the middle part of this building. Now approaching the corner of Cope Street and Wellington Road, and these windows below the canopy will be for a retail outlet. The whole services building is deliberately set back to allow a much wider pavement alongside it, and this is most obvious at this corner. Now looking from Wellington Street, and this brick-clad wall is a nice touch, and it gives a nod to the distinctive older brick houses on the other side of this road. The services building is now finished, so the scaffolding above it is for the Metro South social housing development that is now being constructed on top of it. And here is a view of this future development from Botany Road, with the Waterloo Congregational Church in front of it. A new crane has appeared on the right, and that's for student housing that is starting to be built.
So now at Central Station for a quick roundup of what's changed here over the last 4 months.
The escalator entrances to the Metro platforms have now been painted in this rather smart dark grey colour, and that includes those for platforms 12 and 13 too. This is how they looked previously. Now peering down into the Metro platforms below, and you can see that they look very clean, tidy and finished, so I reckon Sydney Metro can tick this one off their to-do list. And here's a photo of the new platforms courtesy of Sydney Metro. Up above, the track bed for the rebuilt platforms 13 and 14 now has the bottom ballast, and sleepers have appeared for the future track into platform 13. This was filmed on the 13th of April, and those sleepers had appeared within the last 5 days. And alongside platform 14 are lots of new rails. Here is a closer view of the sleepers and rails from further up platform 13. So it appears that we are getting closer to seeing trains in these platforms, or are we? You see, what I thought were the future turnouts for these platforms have since vanished, and I certainly wasn't expecting that. I can only assume that these were the original turnouts that were in place prior to the removal of the old platforms 13 to 15. If you know for sure, please share this in the comments below. Now on a train from platform 12, and I'm hoping this might help me identify the likely location for the new tracks and junctions. So this is the track bed for the future lines into platforms 13 and 14, with platform 14 having this strange kink just here. This is purely to provide access to the services buildings, so the platform 14 track is likely to continue straight. Now coming into view are 2 new stanchions for the future overhead wires. This large area now in view is what remains of the Sydney Metro construction site. And it's quite possible that the future platform 13 and 14 tracks will use some of this area. I reckon we know where these sleepers will be going. This stanchion here makes me think that the 2 new tracks will have joined by now. But this stanchion is a little further away. And so is this one. And under this gantry is easily enough space for a couple of extra tracks. So the new junctions could be quite a lot further south than where they used to be, possibly in this area where there are some rails and something that looks like part of a crossover. The Randle Lane side of the new Chalmers Street entrance remains closed, and according to Sydney Trains, this is unlikely to open for a few months. Just inside this entrance is a new plaque to acknowledge the bravery of those who are fighting to protect this new part of Central Station from the major fire that broke out in the former R.C. Henderson Hat Factory building that was on the other side of Randle Lane. The remaining timber beams from this former building are still here, along with some of the original brickwork. The planned hotel development on this land that was originally going to use the R.C. Henderson building will feature the original brick facade and detailing, and here are some artist impressions of how this new hotel might look. These came from an article in the Urban Developer, which I've linked to in the description below. One thing I noticed is that Randle Lane has very narrow pavements, so it's not particularly pedestrian friendly, and this may be why this entrance hasn't yet opened. Turning this into a shared zone, similar to what was done around Redfern Station's new Little Everley Street entrance, could be one way to improve this.
So now for Gadigal Station, which has 2 entrance exits and some big buildings on top.
This is the Gadigal Station south entrance exit on Bathurst Street. It hasn't changed since the Gadigal Explained video that I did in January, so I reckon it's finished. A quick peek inside reveals glimpses of the escalators, the blue wall at the rear, which will have some artwork, the cream coloured wall on the left, and the ceiling. You can also see help points and signage. And looking towards the wall on the right, you can see the opal gates and the 2 lifts, so it's looking pretty close to being finished inside. The integrated residential tower is almost finished as well, with just a few floors at the top left to do. This is looking from Bathurst Street. And now from Pitt Street, with the crane still in place on this side. Again, a little more work required to complete the upper floors. The Gadigal North entrance exit is on Park Street, and this is how it's currently looking. This structure here is called the glass veil and will be part of the canopy that will cover the station entrance. The only visible change that I can see from the outside is the addition of some vertical supports for this glass veil. So peering in, you can see the 2 lifts on the left, and you get a good view of the tiled floor as well. The escalators are in this area with the yellow wall, and from here you can see the signs but not the escalators. This is further to the right, and from here a bank of 2 escalators are visible, along with several columns to support the station and probably the building above. The ceiling looks the same as the south entrance, and from what I can see, it looks like aluminium battens have been used. This Sydney Metro photo is looking back towards the Park Street entrance, so the yellow wall is now behind. You can see 4 supporting columns from here, and of course the completed escalators. This is at an intermediate level, where passengers will transfer to a bank of 4 escalators that will take them down to platform level. And these escalators will bring passengers into this central cavern, which looks more space age than Victoria Cross Station. This then divides into 2 smaller passageways, one for each platform. And here is one of the platforms, and a close-up of a platform seat. Now back on Park Street, and the 3 floors above are part of the station building, with the 3rd floor being for station services such as ventilation and electrical systems, and that's why this floor has grilles instead of windows. Now viewing from the corner of Park Street and Castlereagh Street, this integrated commercial station development is called Parkline Place and will be 39 stories high, and there's still some work to do on the upper levels. And this is how it's looking from the middle of Park Street. And now from Pitt Street, and the majority of the upper levels within the tower have been completed on this side. So that's 3 stations done, and the next one, which is Martin Place, has changed so much that I dedicated a separate video to it, and that's now appearing in the top right. And on Sunday the 5th of May, Martin Place Station is having a community open day, details in the description below.
So now on High Street overlooking Barangaroo Station, and a few things have changed in the last 4 months.
The service pods have now been completed, including small canopies on some of them. These house station and tunnel ventilation systems and emergency exits. A new footpath is currently being built in front of the service pods, and on the other side of this raised separator will be a bicycle lane. A new wider footpath is being built on the other side of Hickson Road, and this leads to the station plaza. Work continues on this plaza and public domain area, and this includes a new Metro Lollipop sign and the planting of quite a number of trees. So the plaza is already beginning to blend in rather nicely with the nearby Barangaroo Reserve. Now if you're itching to see how this station looks inside, then do watch my Barangaroo Open Day video, which is now appearing on the top right. And this last clip is from the Munn Street Bridge, with all the 9 service pods in view on the left, and another view of the station entrances and plaza. The line now goes under the harbour, and at McMahons Point there used to be an access shaft that was used to retrieve TBM Kathleen and ship it back to Barangaroo to board the second tunnel. This shaft has now been covered over and returned to its former life as Harry Lawson Reserve. So now at the Miller Street south entrance to Victoria Cross Station, and below the pavement a new excavation is taking place. This might be related to the Denison Street underground passageway, but I'm not certain of that. The Denison Street entrance is progressing nicely, and the structure for the laneway above is now more obvious, and the stairs going up to this laneway are now visible. If you want to see the whole station, including all the bits below ground, then do watch my Victoria Cross Open Day video that is now appearing on the top right. The Victoria Cross Commercial Tower continues to grow and is now up to 28 stories. Its ultimate height will be 42 stories.
So now in Crow's Nest, and lots has changed here since my last update that was back in February, so let's take a look.
The canopies and windows are now in place for these retail outlets that are within this large station entrance building on Pacific Highway. And now coming into view is the entrance itself, with the Crow's Nest Station name sign now added to one of the canopies. And in the distance is the services building, which is no longer covered in scaffolding. All the windows have now been installed and the canopies look more or less finished. The Metro Lollipop sign is now in place and waiting to be unwrapped. Notice the interesting patterns on the canopy glass. And now a closer view of the canopy with the station name on it. The canopies above the retail premises still have the glass sections covered over. Those last few clips were taken over the Easter weekend when the roller shutters were down, so I returned a few days later as I really wanted to see inside. This was at sunset time, which is why the station looks very illuminated. The most obvious change since my last update is the public art, which has now appeared on this large wall. It looks pretty special, especially when it's lit up like this, and it's similar to the public art on the Clark Street entrance, which you'll see shortly. Now peering in, and you can see the standard teal Metro Station name along with a couple of information boards. Below the public art are a number of silver panels, and some of these continue above to provide some separation and contrast with the artwork. You can see glimpses of the escalators below another teal station sign, and now the door for the lift in the distance. Here is a much better view of the 3 escalators, which also look amazing when illuminated. You can also see more station signage and a help point. And here is a clip of the side of the lift shaft, with glimpses of the public art behind it. All the ceiling tiles and lighting are now in place, so this entrance looks pretty close to completion.
I'm going to cover the services building next, as this has changed a lot in the last 2 months. The removal of the scaffolding reveals the same distinctive brick finish, so providing consistency with the main station entrance building. The front faces Hume Street and has a larger spacious area inside. This might become a retail space, or possibly the entrance to a residential development that will be built above. Public information about this building is hard to find, so we might need to wait a few more weeks to find out what this space might be used for and whether it will be a public or non-public area. So as I mentioned earlier, the front of this building faces Hume Street, and this road has been closed for about 3 years now, and during this time it was raised to be above the station box. Now back on Pacific Highway, and along the side of this building are a number of canopies. And you may be wondering why these canopies are here in the first place. While some of them are over the entrance to a large secure bicycle storage facility. It's a little distance from the station entrances, but it's still great to see. You can see that the Pacific Highway is on quite a hill here, but the services building was excavated in such a way that it's completely level. So now for the Clark Street entrance exit, which now has its canopy, along with the Crow's Nest Station name. This entrance has 2 lifts, which are straight ahead, and then on the right is a bank of 2 escalators. The wall on the right has more of the same public art that you saw earlier at the Pacific Highway entrance. And below this artwork are more of the silver panels. The white panels on the ceiling are almost identical to the ones on the upgraded parts of Central Station. And that's because they were designed by the same architect, which is Woods Bagot. Now for a closer view of the canopy, and whilst parts of it are still covered over, you can see the black patterns on the glass. These stairs on the Hume Street side will go to a retail space, which is quite likely to be a coffee shop. The gaps in the walls are for the future windows. Now for the integrated station development, which will be a commercial office building. All the scaffolding has now come down, revealing its large floor-to-ceiling windows. Compared to the other integrated station developments, this one is quite modest at just 8 stories. So I'm going to finish off with a look at Chatswood dive site, which has a new shared path and two rather funky looking buildings.
So this area behind the fence is the new Northern Dive Services facility, which occupies part of the original Chatswood dive site construction area. On the right is the services building, and to the left of it is a building that has a few different functions. The services building used to look like this, but now an external aluminium batten screen has been built around it, and that's what makes it look rather cool. And I've been inside this building and down into the tunnel portal below, and that video will appear at the end of this one. The other building also has the same external aluminium batten screen, and within it is a fire pump house, a fire booster enclosure, and a rainwater plant and tank. Running along the side of the new Northern Dive Services facility is a brand new shared path. This links Mowbray Road with Nelson Street and joins the existing Frank Shannon Walk that runs alongside the rail corridor to Chatswood. So this new shared path is effectively an extension of Frank Shannon Walk. On the other side of the shared path and access road is what remains of the original Chatswood dive site construction area. The only building still standing is Mowbray House, and that's because it's heritage listed. This has been the site office for the last few years. Everything else has now been demolished, and that includes a large acoustic shed and this much older building that was also used as a site office. Now, as you've watched this video to the very end, here is a little treat for you.
So that wraps up this Sydney Metro update video. Please like, comment, subscribe, support me on Patreon, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.